All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Brown School Office of Admissions June virtual info session, where we're going to be talking about and answering questions asked by the incoming Brown School cohort. My name is Sarah Birch, and I am an admissions and recruitment specialist for the Brown School. As we all know, the fall semester is quickly approaching, and so we want to ensure that you have all the information that you need to be ready and successful and ready to dive into your program come August. So before we get started, I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves. So we'll start here and go down, and if you could just say your name, your role at the Brown School, and just provide a general overview of what kind of questions you can answer.
Sure. So hello everyone, my name is Edwin. I'm a first year MSW student, specialized in management, concentration in health, and I work part-time at the Evaluation Center here at WashU. So ask me anything about student life.
I'm Leslie Dueling McCullum. I'm the OFE and PH Field Education Manager. So I work in the Office of Field Education, and I can answer questions about practicum, about the dual degree program, and academic advising.
Hi, my name is Katie Noonan, and I'm the Administrative Coordinator for the Office of the Registrar and the Office of Financial Aid. So I can answer any questions related to courses, advising, and financial aid.
Awesome, thank you all. So we're going to start by going over a few important tasks that you should be completing now and over the course of the summer. And then we'll begin fielding questions that were submitted in advance. A huge thank you to those of you who used our online form to submit those questions. We'll also encourage those of you who are watching the live stream to submit questions throughout the event, and we'll do our best to get to those at the end. At this point, you all should have received your fall 2018 enrollment packet, which was sent last week on May 29th. And then we'll send it again on a weekly basis to those who recently submitted their intent to enroll. That enrollment packet is also available, though, on the Admitted Student Resources page on the Brown School website, so you can always refer there to view the enrollment packet. Please review it carefully and take special note of some of the pages in there, including the required phases outlined at the beginning of the packet, because those have a lot of dates and tasks outlined that are essential to ensuring that you're on track to completing all necessary requirements for enrollment. The packet also includes course sequencing guides, which will be helpful in determining your class schedule for the upcoming semester. So speaking of which, for course registration, that's going to open up on June 19th. And before you're approved to register for classes, you must complete the following tasks. So as I mentioned last week, you've got your enrollment packet. This week, you should receive an email titled Activate Your WashU Whistle Key and Email. And so please read that email and follow all the instructions to create your Whistle Key, your @whistle.edu email address, and then go back to the enrollment packet and follow the instructions outlined there to update your contact information, emergency contact information, and sign the Brown School Student Handbook Agreement. Please note that the system does take a little while to recognize your credentials, so you might need to allow 48 to 72 hours before you can gain access to all university systems. So your patience is appreciated during that time. Then next week, you're going to receive an introduction email from your academic advisor that will be sent to your @whistle.edu address. So once you create that email address, be sure to keep checking on that on a regular basis. And then you'll follow all the tasks outlined in the enrollment packet to create a registration worksheet, and then ask your academic advisor to approve. Also note to please allow 2 full weekdays for your advisor to review your registration worksheet and respond to your email. And then finally, in 2 weeks, course registration will open. It'll be on June 19th at 9 a.m. Central Time. So that's when you can begin to register for courses after you've had your registration worksheet approved. As a note, a lot of this information has been sent out in a variety of formats. So we sent out a summer checklist via email, with all of the tasks that you need to complete in June. That same checklist is available in the enrollment packet, and then, as mentioned before, the enrollment packet is on the Admin Students Resources page. So check all of those spaces for checklists and just to make sure you're on track with completing everything that you need to be ready to go. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and begin answering questions that were submitted before the event. And first, the first question was actually how and when will we connect with our advisors? And so as I mentioned just a second ago, your advisor is going to reach out to you next week. So be on the lookout once you've established your WUSTL email for an email from your advisor, and then they'll connect with you on how to create that course registration sheet. The next question is, if we can't register exactly at 9 a.m. on June 19th, is that an issue, and what options are available? So I will ask Katie to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a great question. A couple things you're going to want to do. Well, one thing to know is it's not going to be a problem. You're still going to be able to register if you can't register right at 9 a.m. You'll have to have your registration worksheet approved, and then when you can get to a computer, you'll be able to register. It'll stay open. But you'll just want to make sure that you're in touch really closely with your academic advisor. There are some sections that are going to be more limited to you because of popularity, and timing of registration does go into that. So just make sure your advisor's aware ahead of time. So when you guys are reviewing your schedules together, they know if you have a section that's already popular, you can talk about other options. So you have something in the background.
Great, thank you. Also another thing to note that if you expect any delays in being able to jump in there and actually register for courses, just be in touch with your academic advisor as well on those pieces. The next question is, what if I don't want to take the maximum credit hour requirement for first semester? And how do I complete my foundation level requirements? I'll ask Leslie to speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, so it is okay if you're not able to take all of the courses that we recommend for you in the first semester. We do highly recommend that you take at least 12 credits to ensure that you stay on track for the normal timeline for your program. You can take as few as 9 credits to remain a full-time student, but we highly recommend that you touch base with your academic advisor and talk through what that might look like for scheduling courses in other semesters. So you may need to move some courses to either the spring semester or even over the summer if you take fewer in that fall semester. So we as academic advisors can work with you to figure out what that means for other semesters.
Thank you. And then as a follow-up to that, what does course registration look like for the first time through? And do you have any hints to make this process as seamless as possible? And ask Katie to speak to that.
Great. Well, the first hint is you can get a sneak peek. If you've been looking at your enrollment packet, there are some videos that are linked there. And there's really 2 steps for you to go through to make sure that registration goes smoothly. The first one is you're going to put together your schedule on your registration worksheet, and one of those videos will show you exactly what that looks like in the system and how to do that. Then the next step is your advisor has to approve that to actually open up registration for you. And then there's another short video that'll show you what that looks like. But because you've created your registration worksheet, those courses will already be there for you, and you just click a button to enroll.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to shift a little bit and talk about preparing for classes and just how to prepare to be a good student. And this is another question for Katie then. Is there a way to access the entire syllabus for a course? So for example, see course books, study materials, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's another great question. And once you've set up your WUSTL email address, you'll be able to get access to see our course listings. Right now, upcoming fall syllabi aren't posted in those course listings, but you can go and look at past semesters. So you're going to go up into courses and registration and click on course listings, which will bring you into all course listings for the school. And then you can click back into, let's say, last fall. And if it's a course that existed in that prior semester, you can hover over it and you'll see a button to click and see the syllabus.
Great, thanks. That's a perfect option for them to kind of see what the courses will look like. My next question is there anything you recommend to come prepared for before attending classes to get a better understanding of the subject? And I'll ask Edwin to speak to this a little bit.
Sure. So I think with this question, it goes to it depends. So when your first day of school, your first day of the first week of the classes, you may want to first wait to see where your professor is required for the class. And then after that, you can start following the readings depending on the subject. For, let's say, readings is due next week, then you'll do the readings for next week. I found that useful because I think my first semester, I started reading before we met with the professor. And then when we met with the professor, he was like, well, you're not going to read this subject, you're not going to read that. So I was like, man, it was extra work. So I always recommend students to wait to hear what the professor has to say before coming prepared. But definitely, when it goes to the depends question, like if you're in the third week, fourth week, and you already know what your professor wants, I think it's always helpful to kind of skim through the readings beforehand before you go to class. Because then when you go to class, there's some professors who kind of like ask you like, hey, so tell me about chapter so-and-so, and you may want to be able to be prepared for that. But again, I think with this question, it's very funny because you're going to have 4 to 5 courses a semester, and just, I guess to be gentle with yourself, you're not going to read everything because it's just too much, but you definitely want to skim through the summary. You even want to Google some things, YouTube some things, or even ask a classmate. It's a good opportunity to reach out to someone and be like, hey, like I don't understand this, can you go over with me? Many times I sit in a class, in a room where they have like a board, and one of my classmates kind of like helped me, guided me through by just charting down things on the board. So things like that can prepare you for a class.
That's great. And what I'm kind of hearing Edwin say too is just kind of give yourself some grace. You're not going to know everything at the beginning, and that's okay. But there are some little things that you can do to kind of just feel at your best once you step into that classroom for the first day or week. The next question, if I plan to start preparing for my field placement early, are there any chances that I can have my field advisor assigned at an earlier time than the school has scheduled? I'll ask Leslie to speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, so there are some groups of students that do already have an assigned field advisor when they're coming into the program. So if you are an advanced standing as an MSW student, or if you are an MPH student, you will already have an assigned field advisor. So that would be helpful for you. And then for other MSW students, you have the opportunity to meet with any Office of Field Education advisor during our open advising hours. So we have an advisor of the day schedule that will help you pick a time that works for you to meet with a field advisor. And if you like that particular field advisor, you're welcome to continue to meet with them during that time period. They won't officially be assigned until the spring semester. So your official field advisor will be whomever is teaching your Foundation Practicum seminar course. So unfortunately, we can't assign them ahead of time, but you will know even partway into the semester who will be teaching that course, and then that person you'll know to talk with them about Practicum. But we're always available to talk with you about different opportunities, and you're welcome to meet with whomever you're comfortable with.
Great, thanks Leslie. And the next question is pretty similar, so I'll just kind of add to that. We had a specific question about an international MSW student's experience as an advanced standing student with a concentration in children, youth, and families, and they're kind of wondering the same thing, when will placements start? And so that kind of depends. You can look to the enrollment packet and look at the course sequencing for advanced standing. There's some information there on the right-hand side column about contacting certain folks if you are within a certain concentration. Barbara Levin is the program manager for the Office of Field Education, and she's a great person to connect to, especially for those who are in the Children, Youth, and Families concentration. And the next question is about electives. So how are electives used, and then what have been some of your favorite electives? And I'll have Edwin speak to that.
Sure. So for myself, since I'm specializing in management, I have to use my electives towards management courses. However, I find it very beneficial to take in courses in management. So for me, my favorite course is leading management and organizations. It wasn't the best grade I got, but it was the best course that I took out of from last semester. So I highly recommend. So if you're a student that's not doing a specialization, there are electives, there are skill labs that you can take on the weekends, evenings. There are half a credit, so you can even take more. Some students do find it beneficial to take electives that are skill labs, like let's say grant writing or project management, stuff like that, or even like geo mapping and GIS mapping. Sorry. But yeah, so I think it all depends. So if you're doing a specialization, you might have to use your elective credit hours for that.
Yeah. So, and if you aren't going to specialize in anything, your elective hours can be used for a variety of courses. So you can take courses within your program that are just of interest to you, or you can even take courses outside of your program in other graduate programs across WashU. The next questions are regarding proficiency exams. So the first one was, if we can't take the placement exams until the beginning of August, will it be too difficult to adjust our course schedule if we pass the exams? And I'll ask Katie to speak to that.
Yeah, it won't be impossible for you to switch your schedule around. If you do have an opportunity, if you're in St. Louis and you can take it prior to August, or prior to registration, anytime prior to August though, as well, will help you out because some people will be waiting. Do get in touch with your advisor and let them know. We have dates listed all the way through the summer. If you're here midweek, those dates are on the ends of weekends, but if you happen to be here just on a Wednesday, definitely let your advisor know, because we can set up a one-off time for you to take that proficiency exam. If you can't get here and you have to take it in August, it's not a problem at all. Many students do that, and your advisors will know that going into registration, and then we'll help you adjust your schedule. So you'll have a second schedule kind of on the back burner that you're going to register for if you pass those proficiency exams. And I can just go into the second question,
Yes, please.
which was, what's the format for proficiency exams? And the format is pretty simple. You will get a confirmation email from me once you sign up. You come in and it's a paper exam. You are given, if you're taking biostatistics, you're given scratch paper. Otherwise, you just get the exam and you get an answer sheet, and it's multiple choice, and you have 2 hours to take it.
Awesome. And so what would you say is the best way to prepare for those, or is there a way to study for those proficiency exams?
Yeah. If you go on Admitted Student Resources and go to the proficiency exam page, there are some outlines of what those courses cover. We don't have study guides, but that'll give you an idea of what's on the exam. And then if you Google, there may be ways to study. We, some students do, some students don't. It depends on what your background is. But, yeah.
Great. And Edwin, did you take proficiency exams before coming in?
No, I did not. That's because I applied super late in the process. I didn't have time, but I know students use like Quizlet online.
Yeah.
You can quiz yourself. I think that's very helpful to memorize
Yeah.
coursework that you're kind of already familiar with. So yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
If you are maybe you know human behavior, maybe you don't, I recommend taking it because it's not going to hurt. If you fail it, so what? If you pass it, you get an extra 3 credits for electives. So I say go for it. Just try it out. See if you pass.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Katie. Yeah. The next questions are referring to resources at the Brown School. So this first one is about the Career Center. And this person asked if the Career Center can help with resumes and interview skills to obtain part-time jobs while at the Brown School. And if so, how do we make appointments to meet them? So I can kind of speak to this. So the Career Center does help with a wide variety of things, but they do help with finding those part-time jobs. What we have here at the Brown School is a site called Simplicity, and that's a great resource for students to log in and find open part-time jobs that are available on campus. The Career Center also hosts a variety of workshops, so like resume building workshops. They also offer drop-in advising hours too, so if you'd like to just meet with one of the career advisors one-on-one to speak with them about your resume or get some interview tips, those options are available. You can set an appointment with them once you're on campus. I know that Career Services sends out a welcome email in August, so just be on the lookout for that. And they also host a part-time job fair at orientation. So that's a great opportunity for you to speak with potential employers and see what opportunities are available for you to get some part-time work while you're here. And I don't know if Edwin, if you want to speak a little bit to just part-time work and what that looks like for you.
So for my own experience, I think around when I started in August, around September, October or so, I began to reach out to Career Center, and I kind of went through simplicity. I set an appointment, and I was able to get with someone, and they were able to help me with my resume, my cover letter for the position that I wanted to apply, and also they gave me some workshops throughout the semester. So I went to negotiation, so like negotiating salaries. I went to mock interviews, which is amazing. You can sit down with a group of like 8 or 10 people and kind of like role play and mock interview each other about like position that you're applying for. That was very helpful for me. And there's another one. Can't think of it right now, but I'll get back to it if I remember. But yes, overall, I strongly recommend you all to definitely use the resources that Brown School has available to you. And I think for me, I'm very about like face-to-face person. So I'm just a person that drops in at the office and show my face to like either Katie or Lee, who's the director of a career center. And I just like, hey, I need help with my resume. Can you just look it over? And they're more than happy to help out. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Edwin. The next question is, do we need to buy a laptop prior to orientation, or can we buy it on campus? Are Chromebooks okay, or are those too limited in function? And so I can speak to this a little bit. So we do request that you have a laptop once you're here on campus, and there's a variety of reasons for that. You can find information about our laptop policy on the website. You can purchase one once you get to campus. The WashU bookstore has discounts on laptops, so you can purchase one there. All we ask is that it has minimum operating standards, and those are listed on the website under Admitted Student Resources. Something else to note is that you should not purchase the Microsoft Office suite, because that is free to you as a WashU student. So you can download that once you get your WUSTL key and email address. And then I don't know if Edwin, if you want to speak to just what your experience has been using a laptop or just computer access here on campus.
If you're looking at this video and you're someone that wants to save money, you don't have to buy a laptop. I brought my dad's 2003 Dell laptop. And it still works fine. I have to keep it on the charge on the wall, but that's fine. The Brown School offers computer labs at the Brown School, at Goldfarb Hall. They also offer computer in the library at Olin Library. So just the campus itself offers computers across the whole, whether through Mac, Dell, what other? But I always recommend, if you're trying someone to save, you don't need a 2018 brand new Chromebook or Mac, because we do have the resources here. You just have to reach out, and there's printing as well, and there's a computer lab on the 3rd floor of Brown that is always open 24 hours. If you have your access to ID, you can always go in there and work it out with the laptop there. So
great, thank you. And if you want to talk to somebody a little bit more about just what that looks like, at the bottom of the page on that laptop requirements for students on the Admitted Student Resources, there's some contact there for IT, so you can talk to them a little bit about what that looks like too. The next few questions are about financial aid, so I'll defer to Katie for these. But the first one is, when will financial aid funds be dispersed to student accounts? And then to follow that, when will students receive refunds from remaining financial aid?
Great. So your bill is going to hit starting on July 1st, and bills will go out on the 1st of the month after that. Your tuition will be due at the end of August. So what's going to happen when you see your bill in July, you'll see your scholarship amount will go against that tuition, and you'll see an estimated loan amount. Loans won't disperse until 10 days prior to classes. So you won't actually see that loan hit against your tuition bill until a little bit later. But you can always check in with our office if you have questions about that. And then the second question is kind of a follow-up on that. If you've gotten loans that go over that tuition amount, when do you get your refund? And that doesn't actually happen until the first week of class. So you want to, if you're needing that money, you're going to want to plan to have a little bit of buffer so that that hits your, if you got direct deposit or you're going to get a check coming out, you have enough to make it to that first week of class.
Great, thank you. The next question is, can students reapply for need-based aid for their second year? I'll ask Katie to kind of speak to that again too.
Yeah. So there's not the same need-based application that you would have submitted when you were applying to school here, but there are some limited continuing student scholarships that come out while you're in your first year, and you'll just want to make sure you keep an eye on any emails you get from the Office of Financial Aid. We'll let you know when those applications open, and then we'll kind of be bugging you to apply for them. There's also, if you're getting loans, the FAFSA submission is every year, and that will affect if you get work study. So there will be a deadline to make sure you submit that in March of next year for work study eligibility.
And I know there might be some practicum scholarship opportunities too. Leslie, if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so if you are planning to do practicum out of state or internationally, we typically have some smaller scholarships available. You do apply for them, and we evaluate students just based on their academic performance and their practicum goals, but typically students have some sort of financial assistance for out-of-state and international practicum. And then every year in the spring we offer practicum awards, which are sometimes after you've completed practicum, sometimes before, depending on where you're at in the program.
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is, if you find an external scholarship and you can apply for it during your first year, during your second year, we will always add that on for you. So you're not limited in applying to external scholarships. You can always stack that on top of your financial aid. So if you find something and you want to talk to our office about applying for those, I also have a list I can send out to anyone who's interested that you can apply for scholarships, starting while you're in your first year for your second year.
Great, thank you. And then we're going to go right back to Katie for this last one. What resources do the Brown School offer, or does the Brown School offer to students who are taking out loans?
Yeah, the main thing we offer is advising for you. We do workshops as well, so you'll get information from us right away about debt management workshops that either Matt Newland runs or I run, and you'll also always have us as a resource from the time you start here till 10 years down the line after you've graduated and if you're still paying off loans, then that's something we're more than happy to help. If you're taking a new job and you want to talk to us about what loan repayment looks like, anytime, you're always our student. So that's the main thing. We're always here to help you.
Great, thanks, Katie. So the next set of questions I'm going to defer to Edwin for, because we're going to talk about student life. A lot of you submitted some questions regarding that. So the first one is, do students generally have a difficult time finding on-campus employment? And you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but maybe just kind of speak to the ease of that process and what it looks like getting on campus, maybe versus off-campus employment.
Sure. So one of the things that the job fair orientation, you will meet a lot of people who are in campus, like let's say professors doing research or research centers. They're always offering part-time positions. But there's also outside resources who come on board to offer part-time jobs or full-time. But for me, speaking for myself, I think with my experience, I started looking for a job because the thing is I got in August, like around August 14th or 18th, like right the week before orientation. So I didn't have enough time to really look at positions in campus. But around September, I started looking for positions on Simplicity, and I saw one that I was really interested. I emailed the person, I sent my cover letter, resume. But then I also went to see them in person and just let them know my interest, and I think that was more helpful. And they were able to do an interview and then give me a position from that. So I think it's always good to, if you're interested in a position in campus that's with your interest and career aspirations, I recommend you reaching out to that person, knock on their door and be like, hey, I'm really interested in working there, and most likely they'll for sure give you a position.
That's great. Yeah, and I think the other thing too is just don't be discouraged if you aren't finding something right away, because opportunities open up throughout the school year. So just be proactive, start looking for those, and continue looking for opportunities if something's not coming up right at the beginning of the school year. The next question is, how do students divide their classes up throughout the week, and how do you fit part-time work into that schedule?
speak to that.
Yeah.
Again, my own personal experience. So my classes are usually Mondays and Wednesdays, and I think with that it allows me to take part-time on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And sometimes, so I work at Evaluation Center, and there's a project where it requires Saturday shifts. So sometimes I do like 4-hour Saturday shifts. So it does help with my schedule. But again, I think the people that you work with or here at the school are very flexible and open with you to fix around your course schedule. So if you only have classes Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, you can find some legroom on Wednesdays and Fridays. It always works out because they're always willing to. I mean, students are first. Even people who you work for, they always know that students come first, so they always work out with your schedule.
That's great. How is the social life among the school community? And then also with that, what advice do you have for making new friends and getting acquainted with the area and the campus?
So I guess it depends. So like sometimes, for those who may feel like they're introverted or not, during orientation week, you're going to be exposed to more than 300 people for like 8 hours a day, and it's going to be exhausting. But you're going to meet people who have the same interest, similar background stories, and you're going to connect right away. And if you don't, when you start classes, first week of classes, you're always doing teamwork, class work groups, and out of that, those teamworks always come across, beginning of friendships. So I think for myself personally, I am a Hispanic, so I was looking for Hispanic groups, and there was a huge group who were Hispanics who wanted to start this Hispanic group. So we all got together, and we started hanging out outside of school, going out for a drink, or talking about homework, or going for coffee, things like that. So you always have those opportunities because there's tons of student groups who are always willing to. There's the Asian group, there's the LGBTQ group, there's African American group, and I'm sorry if I don't mention all of them, but there's just the variety that I can think of in my head. But there's just so many groups that you can always reach out to. Even if you're not from the Hispanic group, there's so many people that are not are considered Hispanic and they still are in the Hispanic group, just because it's to build friendships. So I think the Brown School for myself is very inclusive. I've never had an experience where people are kind of like, oh, they don't belong here. So it was just always like, welcome. So personal experience, definitely.
That's great. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to just approach those opportunities and kind of seek them out yourself too. The next question is about transportation. There's a few questions about these. So the first one is just asking about whether or not you've taken public transit or walked to your car off campus at night. Just kind of wondering about whether or not this is relatively safe. I also want to say appreciation to the PS admission staff is the bomb. Thanks for that shout out. But yeah, if you want to speak to just public transportation, walking at night, that sort of thing.
I'm having a lot of it depends, just because I'm thinking about friends who live far away from, not far away, but like 10 to 15 minutes away from campus. I myself live about 10 minutes away with bike. So like I ride my bike to school, and when I had evening classes, I would always take the street that was very lighted, just because police officers will tell you, just make sure you be safe, and there's always precautions. But I know friends who've walked together in groups after their evening classes. I know a lot of people are parking in the Forest Park, which is like a 10-minute walk, and people walk there where they park their cars, and you always go in groups. For public transit, I do have a public transportation card, but I don't use it much. But definitely for my friends who do use it, they find it helpful when they go. I mean, some friends go by themselves and they haven't had an issue, and some people go in groups and they don't have an issue. So I cannot speak for people who had issues with that because none of my friends had that experience or myself had that experience, but definitely a lot of my friends use public transportation, and so far they've liked it. It's free and it's cheap. So.
That's great. Yeah, if you want to add some too, please.
I'll chime in about that as well. So WashU has a number of different resources for safety at night and off campus. So there is a campus to home shuttle that goes to the surrounding neighborhoods. And that runs usually until I think 2 in the morning. The hours may vary a little bit, but it runs a lot of the time. So if you're concerned about getting back home and you live within a certain radius of campus, the campus to home shuttle is a great option. There's also a free app called the Safe Track app on your phone that you can use. That's through the university as well, which you can keep on you at all times. And as you're, if you're walking and you don't feel safe, if you take your thumb off of it, it will alert the local police immediately. So there's a couple different options. And WashU Police Department does patrol a lot of the surrounding areas as well. So I would just look at the WashU Police Department resources page online. They have a lot of options to help you feel more safe when you're here. But generally, it's also pretty safe as long as you're being vigilant, you're keeping an eye on your surroundings, and just staying in groups when you can.
That's great. And then Edwin, you had a little bit.
I just thought of something, yes. So for those who may not have a parking pass to park right in front of the school, and you know that it's going to be a day where you're going to like do an all-nighter at WashU, or you're going to study till like 1 in the morning, or 2 in the morning, or even 3 in the morning, I recommend getting your car before 6 p.m., drive it under the Duck Center, which is an underground garage, and it's free after 5, so you don't have to pay.
Yeah.
And it's in the campus, so.
Yeah, that's great. And that's a great segue into our next question too, which is about parking. So how much is it per month? And how do I handle parking when I occasionally need to drive to campus? I can speak to this a little bit. So there are a range of parking options with different kind of tiered options available for parking permits. I personally use what's called Park Smart, and that's an option for you to park in West Campus, which is just like a mile down the road. And then a shuttle runs about every 5 to 10 minutes back and forth between West Campus and the main campus, which is where the Brown School is located. And it drops you off right in front of Goldfarb Hall, which is one of the Brown School's buildings. It's one of the more affordable options for parking, so if you know you have a vehicle, you can look into that as an option. There's also what's called the Occasional Parking Program. So if you know you would like to use alternative forms of transportation like public transit or walking or riding a bike, but you might want to have that kind of buffer to have a parking spot if you need it. Occasional parking will allow you to buy like a limited number of parking passes essentially, and then you can park on campus for those days when you know it would just be more convenient for you to have your car, or you don't have access to that alternative form of transportation. And I just recommend looking at the Parking and Transportation Services website to see all of those options and pick out what the best one is for you. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that. Great. Next one is about student housing. So how do students go about finding housing, and what are some important things to look for or consider? I don't know, Edwin, if you want to speak to that experience.
I think personal experience, I went into the WashU website. I'm not sure the exact link to it, but it's like housing for WashU. And they have a list of by price range. And that's how I was able to contact my first landlord through that. I always make sure, just be aware of like scams, because I know people will call you and want to FaceTime, like, hey, I have an apartment, pay online $300 before coming on board. I remember I even called one of the people that work at admissions, Josh, and I was like, hey, like somebody called me the other day, like asking me for $300 before I moved into the apartment. I said, no, that's a scam, don't worry about it. So just always look out for those. But I think the best way to do it is go to the main web pages like Zillow, Housing Apartments, apartmentfinder.com. I found mine through Zillow, which is an area right by the school, and it's a great area. So I mean, I got lucky, but it's definitely places you want to look at. And also, we have a Facebook page for Brown School students where people are constantly posting stuff like, hey, there's a free apartment, so-and-so. So stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, so there's
helpful.
definitely some sublease options. Other things to consider too, there isn't graduate housing for graduate students at WashU, but there is a program, and I'm blanking on what the name of that is now. Quadrangle,
yeah.
thank you. So yeah, Quadrangle is off-campus housing that is through WashU. So that's another option that you can look at too. And then things to consider, just like walkability. If you want to be within walking distance of campus, look at surrounding neighborhoods. If you know that you want to be within distance of some like nightlife or things to do socially, you can look at options there. Always feel free to reach out to us on our opinion of like some good areas to live in and that sort of thing too. I don't know if Katie or Leslie, if you have anything to add to housing. Nope, great. The final question that we had submitted, and then we're going to go to questions that were submitted live. So this question was, how many people are in the fall 2018 cohorts? So we are expecting approximately, for MSW, we're expecting approximately 260 students, and that includes advanced standing. For MPH, we're expecting around 90 students, and then for dual, around 12 students. So now we'll go to the live questions. And the first one I have here is, what does summer look like? Do students stick around St. Louis? How do students handle housing in the summer, especially if their lease lapses? And I'll let Edwin kind of speak to that. What does summer look like?
That's a great question.
Now
Is
that
this
you're living
question
it.
before entering the Brown School or in between Brown School?
I'd say in between, yeah.
So I'm living here right now, and some friends have gone back home to visit their family because they're not doing internship or practicum. Some went to international practicum. But for myself, I stayed here in St. Louis. There's definitely some friends who stick around as well, and we kind of like hang out. We just went to Fugitive Beach. I recommend. It's awesome. It's really cheap. It's a great place to like hang out, and it's like a beach area. But anyways, not to sidetrack. Definitely. So I work part-time here at the Evaluation Center at WashU. And I also am starting practicum next week, about 25 hours a week. And so it works out for myself. Do students stick around? I think I answered that, right?
Yeah. And I think to answer the question too about handling housing, there are a lot of places to sublet. So if for whatever reason, you know, your lease is ending and you're not sure where you're going to be, those are communicated through the Facebook group. So just be on the lookout there for options. And then if you are wondering about what summer looks like before you arrive, I would say that kind of just depends on when you want to get here, when you're able to get into your housing option too. So you can get here as soon as you'd like. Most students get here, I'd say, around beginning of August, and then start preparing for orientation and that sort of thing. The next question is, what is the student government / student council system like at the Brown School? Can you speak to that, or I can't?
Yes, I have good friends who are in the student council, and there's a group of individuals who are very committed to the cohort, and they're always willing to they have meetings every Monday with directors, people at higher ups who work at the Brown School. And they're constantly bringing in ideas, suggestions, questions from students, any recommendations or any concerns that students have. And they bring it up to the leadership team, and they say, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we want to improve, this is what we want to do. And there's been a lot of meetings. We just had a town hall meeting with the dean, and they were able to submit all these questions that us students had, and they were able to present it in a way where there's going to be some changes in some things that we want to see and stuff like that. So the student council here is from my experience, have definitely been like on point. They've been real. They've been making sure that our voices are heard, and that students always come first. So,
Great.
And you can always. So when you come in the fall, you can definitely start. If you really want to take on that position, you feel like you're someone that really wants to take that role and as a leader, I recommend applying for it. I know my name was put on there, and I didn't apply, and I regret it. But it's definitely you should definitely apply if you really feel like you want to make a difference for the students.
And that organization is called Student Coordinating Council here at the Brown School. They will have a presence at orientation along with multiple other student groups. So just start having those conversations if you think you want to get involved in something. The next question is, I'm interested in living in the Tower Grove South area. Do students live in these areas where there is a longer commute? And is it possible to do this while relying entirely on bikes or public transportation? From my knowledge, I think a lot of students do live in that area. It's a pretty popular area, especially given the access to the Tower Grove Park, South Grand, which is an awesome strip of a lot of restaurants and bars and just fun things to do. And a lot of students are able to kind of handle that commute. Public transportation is a good way to go about using that. So buses, there are stops all throughout that neighborhood. Bikes might take a little bit longer, but if you're willing to make the trek, then that's an option too, especially if weather's favorable in those times. But that is definitely a popular area to live in and a fun place to be too. And yeah, if Katie wants to speak to that.
I would just say I live over near that area, and the commute is very reasonable if you have a car. If you don't, we now have bike share in St. Louis, so there are a lot over in the Tower Grove area. It's an option like once in a while maybe, or to get to public transportation if you live a little further from public transportation.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. The next question is, I'm interested in taking language classes to complement my MSW. What is the process to register for undergraduate language courses? Is it possible to enroll in more than 15 credit hours? I can let Leslie and Katie speak to those.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So I'm going to break it down into two different questions. One, is it possible to take courses outside of the Brown School just in general? You can take classes outside of the Brown School to be electives. They have to be graduate level, and you have to get them pre-approved through the Registrar's office. You would talk to your advisor or the Registrar's office about initiating that process. For an undergraduate language course, it would not be something that we would allow you to take as part of your graduate program. You could let us know that you want to do that, but then you would have to pay additional tuition to take those credits, and they wouldn't count towards your degree. So it's not that it's not possible, it just doesn't really, it's not included in your program. As far as taking more credits over the 15 credit limit, that's the credit limit for MSW first semester. Second semester is going to be a little bit higher for MSW students. First semester, we really don't want students to take higher than the credit limit. You're adjusting to graduate school. It's your first time in a professional, maybe not your first time, but we really want you to be focusing on your coursework. And that 15 credit limits gives you the room to take more than you need to take to still graduate on time. However, in additional semesters past the first semester, if you want to take over your credit limit, you can petition to do that. You just have to pay tuition above that credit limit, and you would have to just go through a petition process with the Registrar's office. We want to see that you were able to handle that first semester well and still get good grades. But it's possible.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. The next question, what's the international student community like at the Brown School? Edwin, if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So I have a lot of friends who are international students from Persia, India, Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, just all over. And I noticed that in Brown School, there's very diverse and it's very inclusive. And one of our Brown School's goals and I guess vision and even one of their values is diversity and inclusion. And we really strongly emphasize that. So we have this cultural thing that we do year round, I think in spring, right?
Yeah, cultural showcase.
Showcase, there we go. And we have signs and boards, and people from all over show their heritage and their culture and their background, and it's amazing because a lot of us kind of see that, and we kind of learn something new from everybody. So definitely, there's also the student groups. A lot of the student groups are very inclusive in sense of internationally. Again, I'm in a Hispanic group. There's also international groups. So I think for myself and also from experience from my friends who are international students, we are definitely, it's been a community where we all feel like, we're all in this together. And yeah, so there hasn't been that moment where just people were left out or silos. Because we're all social workers. We all reach out to those people. So if you feel like you're being left out, somebody's definitely going to reach out to you because we're social workers. If not, you call them up, hey, But anyways.
Yeah. And I think just demographically speaking too, we've had students represented from over 50 countries in the Brown School. So that population is certainly represented, and we do our best to try to make sure that that continues in the years to come. Next question is, are there any academic writing resources or classes available to international students? Leslie, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So we do have a designated writing center here at the Brown School. So a lot of the international students and domestic students as well use that resource. So Peter Coogan, who is the head of that center, is usually very available to meet with students and go over whatever help you need with writing papers, with studying for tests, for all sorts of things. So he's very great with communications resources. I know that some students coming into the Brown School, if you need a little extra assistance with language before you start your classes, there is sometimes a course in that first semester that you'll take to practice more English and prepare for classes as well. And a lot of times even faculty members are willing to work with you in addition if you're struggling to understand in classes or need a little extra time understanding after class or meeting outside of class. That's faculty are usually very open to that.
Excellent. Thanks, Leslie. And Edwin had a little bit to add to that
Yes,
too.
so in South 40, which is right across from the campus, there's a location where I think you get like a visa. So like if you're an international student, you're struggling with other language or exams, you need more time, you'll get a visa and you'll take that to and you show this to a professor before classes start. And so they're aware that you may have a language barrier or you may be behind in exams, you may take longer. So when exams do come up, those students who have that visa will have more extended time and will be in a different room. So they have more time to do the exams.
That's great. Thank you. So our last question. Are there options to do collaborative research with other WashU faculty, so non-Brown School faculty? And the short answer is yes. And I don't know if anyone wants to kind of speak to that experience, Leslie.
I can speak to that, particularly for MPH students, but I'm sure for MSW students as well. We have a lot of faculty with the med school and with other programs across WashU that are really interested in working with our students. So in the Department of Anthropology and Psychology and some other areas, particularly for practicum, that has come up a lot. So there have been plenty of research opportunities kind of outside of that traditional scope of social work and public health. And sometimes there are paid opportunities as well for research assistants in other departments that they may be open to Brown School students as well.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for providing all of this wonderful information. What I will say is if we did not get to your question, please feel free to reach out. We're going to leave my contact information for you here at the end. So if you have any questions that we didn't have a chance to get to, feel free to reach out to me. And one more question in earnest is to one more, I guess, request in earnest is to please look at your enrollment packet and review that constantly throughout the summer so that you're on track with everything. And that's all. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you soon.